No, there is no herd mentality. You are an apex predator. You're outside the herd. You're picking these motherfuckers off. You don't want to be a part of the herd. You have to think differently. You have to behave differently. Everything in a herd gets consumed. They're food. Now, if you want to walk around like a sheep, like cattle, and waiting for your time to get picked off, and you're welcome to do that. And I told my son, I said, what are you? What are you? Are you a sheep or are you a wolf? What's it going to be? Because you can exist for a long time in this life as a sheep, going to work, letting someone tell you it's time to go over here, it's time to go over there. And you'll look at them as, oh, they're a good shepherd to me. They provide a good life. They give me a good job. I got a good job. Fuck your good job. I don't want your job. There is no job out there that I want, and none of them is good enough for my son. None of them are good enough for any of my sons. I don't want them working for anyone. I want them to be able to write the check that they want every week based on their own efforts, their own steam, and managing the risks and knowing that they may not get the win that they wanted. It may not pan out. They may have a loss, but it ain't going to cause them to go on tilt and just completely wreck themselves. But you don't know what it's like to think about those things in the beginning. The only thing you're thinking is all the upside. And the ones that are conscious about the risk, that keeps them from wanting to do anything because they're afraid. And that's where he's at right now because he put money in out of his own pocket to do these resets. And he felt like that was recklessness, and it was. And he doesn't want to do that whole thing all over again and be reminded of it didn't work for him. It didn't work for him. Someone said, there's a way to do this. And it's going to be a lot harder now for you because you have this mental scar tissue, which is exactly why I was trying to teach you the way I was teaching you. So that way you wouldn't have these things. Just like when you are listening to me now in these Twitter spaces, just when you're watching those videos on YouTube, and I'm talking about the things that are outside the chart that you're going to have to deal with, whether you like it or not. They're conversations that you need to have, preferably before you get to that situation that I'm talking about. Because many times you're not going to have the skill sets or the coping mechanisms to get you through it unscathed. You're going to hurt yourself. And then you're going to go back and listen to a video. Oh, I wish I would have watched that video. I wish I would have heard that. You heard it. You're just in denial. You didn't listen to it because you thought you were going to be the exception to the rule, and you're not. All of us are human. All of us have frailties and issues with us. Mine, a lot more than some of you. But all of this can be managed. But you got to start with a very, very small, low hanging fruit objective and be content with a little bit in the beginning. Because here's the thing. What happens if you could only just make $250 per trade? Think about it. What happens if that's the best you could arrive at? Every trade that you take, the best you could get is $250. Is that a failure? Now, some of you, especially the young men, be like, oh, pfft, come on, man, I ain't doing trading if it's just that much. That's exactly how I thought about it too. In 1992, that Christmas, I'm sitting there thinking, man, I gotta at least make $500 per trade, and I would not accept anything less. If it was a 400-hour win or I got stopped out and it was $375, I looked at that as a loss. In my mind, I treated that as a losing trade. And I was programming myself to expect and demand my full pull. And anything less was a failure. Now, who was I to do that? A dumb shit. Somebody that had no idea what he was doing. And I was brainwashing myself into thinking that profitability at any measure was counterproductive, wasteful, insignificant. And that's what you're doing probably with a lot of things in trading. It wasn't until I started understanding high frequency trading algorithms Their whole function, their whole function was to go in and take very small bites of the market frequently, all day long. Now, when the developers of an algorithm sit down and they contemplate how they want to go in and engage market, they're not in there saying the trade has to be $500. They're not doing that. They are looking for small little snippets in price delivery that they know absolutely they can get dozens, not one time a day, dozens per time. I'm sorry, dozens per day. Think about that. Now, think about what you're trying to do. Think about what you go into my content trying to squeeze out and say, this is what I have to do. That's not my problem. That's your problem. You're trying to present a feat, some outcome that may not be applicable for you in your understanding or your present ability. So go back to a simple approach to thinking, okay, if I could get $250, $250. You want to here's the fallacy in this, because when I first started understanding this, Larry Williams talked about this a lot in a lot of his systems. At the time in the 90s, he was wanting a trade or a model or system, if you will, to be able to pay at least $350 per trade. Wait a minute. Did you just say Mr. Larry Williams, Mr. 10,000 to $1.2 million in the Robbins Cup in 1987? That guy said he wants to make at least $350 per trade, or he's not really interested. That means he's not even getting a full handle in the S&P back then, because it was $500 per handle. But because I was listening to that stuff, and it was a lot of number crunching, and it was very simplistic rules that made no sense to me, and many of them I still don't have any affinity for. But he had an approach that he wanted to take on, and it had to have this much in terms of back testing, saying it results and yields this much in terms of profit per trade. If you can find a setup that yields $250, that $250 can be scaled to whatever the fuck you want it to be. What's $250? That's 5 handles. What happens if you get 5 handles over the course of a week and that's all you got? Is that a bad week? Now, some of you jokers out there, this guy's talking about making $250 a week. Right. But you're the same person that's blowing your shitty ass account live on live stream. And we all watched you do it. $250 more than you had at the beginning of the week is still $250. If you were broke and had someone hand you $250, you'd be appreciative, right? If you just did that in the beginning, I'm not saying your whole career is this, but in the beginning, if you started with that mindset and all you were able to scrape out over the course of the entire week because you did not push real hard, because you know that you're not ready to do that. You might want to win a lot every day. You want to be able to trade every single day. But that's not realistic because you don't have the skill set to do that. And I'm reminding my son that he doesn't have to do this every day. He needs to tape read. He needs to execute in front of me because he needs to be conditioned and desensitized from the fear he has placed on himself because of unrealistic expectations being acted upon. He tried to do it his own way. Well, everybody in retail does that. Everybody does it. They read a book. They think they are going to go in and apply that stuff. It's like they do it with my videos too. Oh, I watched this video on order blocks. I watched this video on optimal trade entry. Oh, I watched the Silver Bull. I'm going out there and trading Silver Bull, and then read their tweets to me. Why is this failing again? Well, first of all, you're doing it wrong. Everybody wants to be in a hurry to go out there and do something to make money, when you have to figure out what it is that you're going to do to mess yourself up. And that's why 1 year minimum is ideal. That's not what you want to hear, I know. But that's exactly what you need to hear. You can't figure this stuff out on a unique personal level, fast tracking it, trying to do it real quick. You cannot, it's impossible. Nobody's going to do this for you. Nobody. Nobody's going to shorten it for you. Nobody's going to make it easier for you because you are bringing the same bullshit that everybody else has brought into it. It's mental baggage. And social media brings more of that. Trying to stand out, trying to I got to defend my mentor. I got to make myself look profitable. I got to be able to keep up with the people that are renting cars. All this stuff. It's all bullshit. And if I did not stomp on the throat of Cameron to tell him that that's not the right way of doing it now, that's the direction he would go. Because what started all this stuff is he wants to go out there and troll the trolls. And I told him, I said, you're already doing it wrong. You can do that, but that can't be the reason why you're doing it. That can't be the reason why. Because if that's the reason why, you're going to rush. You're going to rush to do something that is not needed. It's not needed. You need to develop a skill set because once I move on, if you want to live beyond what I'm able to live like now, you want to be able to earn a lot of money. This skill set can do that for you. But you have to grow over time. And you have to figure out what you think as a human being, what greed's going to feel like when you start feeling it, when you are profitable, when you're consistently profitable. That doesn't mean no losses. It means you close the week, you close the month, you're in gain, you're in profit. It doesn't have to be a lot. You're just not losing. There's nothing wrong with that. And I told him today, I said, I want you to see what it feels like to be at break even majority of the day. So when he wasn't getting it correct, I'd say, okay, buy here. And as soon as it gets above that level right there, I want you to close it. Do not use a limit order. I want you to feel it. I want you to feel it while you're in it. And as soon as I tell you go, you buy it. And when it gets to that level, you sell it. Sometimes he would sell it before it got to the level. I said, why'd you do that? Because I was afraid. Why did you not listen to me? You're not listening. 30 years of experience against yours. If you're not going to listen, you're not going to learn. And other times, he'd hold past the level and it would pull back on him a little bit. I said, okay, see what you did there? You had the right amount of gain, but you held on too long. Why'd you do that? Because I thought I was going to keep going. I didn't tell you to do that. And he would get frustrated and start getting antsy. I said, why? What are you feeling right now? I'm done. I'm done, Dad. I'm done. I said, no, you're not. This is exactly where you need to be at. This is where you will do what you did by failing at this multiple combines. That frustration, that feeling of, I need to do something to replace this feeling. That's where it all comes from. Everybody that ever blows an account is in that state of mind. And if they don't start there when they're in the trade that they know damn well has gone tits up and ain't going to pay out, they know they should get out and they don't. And then they're in that moment. They're in that mindset then. But they can't bring themselves to get out of the trade and close it. And I put him in those today. Lots of executions, lots of them. And we hung around break even. And I told him, I said, what's it feel like? He goes, well, we were up a lot. We were down a lot. And I said, what's a lot? A couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. I said, see, you're saying a lot because that's in relationship to what you earn on a weekly payroll. But the most you lost and was down was like $500. And you only went down there one time. But every time you went up, you'd come back down a little bit. And then every time you go back up, you make a new equity high and you come right back down in the middle, hang around, break even, go back down, break even, go up a little bit more. And then I said, now think about what you're doing. All these transactions, do you want your trading to be this many trades? Because there's a lot of people out on social media that will show you at the end of the day, this is what I made. Look what I was able to profit today. But they don't show you the 50 transactions they took. There's nothing wrong with working your ass off to get out of something. You know, if you're really gung ho about trying to make a profit on a day, sometimes you're going to get into a market environment where you have to work a lot to get it to come out. Or if you go into drawing, you do it wrong.